The last time I walked into Omnicorp's gleaming headquarters, it still smelled like expensive cologne and fresh roasted coffee beans. Our CEO, Marcus Hayes, installed those high-end machines on every floor, no matter how much it cut into the annual budget. He said a stale office made employees look uninspired. I'd been passed over for my promotion 4 days ago. The announcement email was small, just department heads and one gloating nephew who brought donuts no one touched. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I stayed late at the office that night, 2 hours after everyone had gone home. I hadn't asked permission. I hadn't felt the need. That evening, I came to back up my code before turning in my resignation. My boss, Marcus Hayes, was still in his corner office scrolling through stock portfolios he'd never have to worry about. He nodded at me but didn't speak. My colleague, Nathan Hayes, yes, Hayes, Marcus's nephew, was already in the server room, arms deep in cables. "There's a permissions issue," Nathan said without turning. "You know the one. You wrote most of the back end. It's throwing errors." I didn't answer. I remembered that code. Thousands of lines crafted over 5 years. I used to guard that codebase like it held something irreplaceable, though management never acknowledged what was inside. Marcus spoke next without looking up from his monitor. "You had the admin keys last month when you built out the payment gateway. Did you update the documentation before you left?" "I pushed everything to the repository before I left," I said. Quietly. Nathan straightened, face unreadable. "He trusted you with the entire system architecture." "That's fine, but we're just saying if you made any undocumented changes after the security audit and something happens to crash production, it's okay to say so now." I looked from him to Marcus. He closed his browser window. "I'm not accusing," he said, his voice flat. "But we need to know if you've hidden any code bombs or dependency issues we should know about." The system I'd built processed millions of dollars daily. It had never failed. Something in me pulled taut. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Nathan folded his arms. "I mean, it's just us. No legal team. We just want to make sure everything's stable." There was silence. The kind that thickens in sterile offices where nothing moves unless someone forces it to look alive. "I didn't sabotage anything," I said. Marcus nodded slowly as if I'd confirmed what he feared or what he expected. "Well," he said, clearing his throat. "If anything unusual turns up in the logs, just let us know. And maybe take a break from accessing the VPN," Nathan added, his voice tighter. "We all need to protect the company." I looked at them, both. Two people who shared a company email domain, but not my ethics. The admin credentials weren't the only thing that had disappeared from that office. I left without another word. The next morning, I returned to headquarters. I didn't want to, but I had to. I'd promised the CTO I would help document the payment API, the one I'd maintained meticulously, even as my promotion applications were rejected at the edges. Marcus was already at the conference table when I walked in, sipping coffee from a white mug with the company logo. His suit jacket was open over a blue shirt, designer shoes on his feet. "Sit," he said without looking up. I did. Nathan came in a few minutes later carrying a leather portfolio and a USB drive. He didn't greet me, just pulled out the chair across from mine and set his things down like he was preparing for a deposition. Marcus cleared his throat. "We talked last night. Nathan's been doing some checking." Nathan nodded. "The system performance has been degrading over the past few weeks. Right before your promotion interview, there were some unauthorized commits." I blinked. "Unauthorized commits?" "The logging system shows activity from your account during off hours. You pushed code that wasn't reviewed." He went on. "We think you've been leaving backdoors, and we need all of them closed and documented." Marcus folded his hands. "We're not trying to make this ugly, but there's evidence that you might be planning to leverage your work for future opportunities." The code was locked down. No one else had the expertise to modify it at that level. I said nothing. It wouldn't matter. Nathan leaned forward, his voice soft, but sharp. "This isn't just about some code. It's about trust. You weren't here when we pitched to the Series C investors. You weren't here when Marcus had to explain to the board why we needed another round of funding." I worked 80-hour weeks to build that system," I said. "Money doesn't build relationships in the venture capital world," Nathan replied. Marcus raised a hand. "Let's stay on topic." "I am," Nathan replied, eyes still on me. "You weren't the one networking at conferences, but now that we've secured another round, here you are expecting a director title." He let that sentence hang like it was the conclusion I should have drawn for myself. My hands were still on the table, palms down. I could feel the glass surface cool against my skin. I don't want her fired, Nathan said, turning to Marcus. But if she's compromised the system, we deserve to know. I looked at my boss. His gaze met mine, but it didn't soften. We're not filing anything legal, but I agree. Document any backdoors if you created them. And it's probably best you transition to another team afterward. It landed quiet, not cruel, not loud, just final. I pushed back my chair and stood. You think I sabotaged the company? You're the only one who had deep enough access, Nathan said. What else are we supposed to think? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I opened my mouth. Closed it, then nodded. All right. Nathan blinked. So? I didn't compromise anything, I said. He frowned. Then why? I said I didn't sabotage it, I repeated. But I understand what you've decided. I turned toward the hallway toward the lobby doors I used to swipe through every morning at 7 a.m. Nathan's voice followed me. We don't want drama, Eliza. We just want the truth. I paused at the security desk. That's what I want, too, I said. I'm sorry you don't recognize it. I didn't cry on the drive home. I kept the radio off and my eyes on the road like that could keep the rest of me from unraveling. The apartment was cold. The central air made more noise than comfort. I set my laptop bag down, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the edge of the couch. For a while, I just stared at the blue throw pillow. It looked like something the interior decorator would have picked for a startup trying too hard. I opened my messenger bag, unzipped the inner pocket, and pulled out a small encrypted drive. Inside was a complete system log and a digital receipt. From the cloud provider. The date was 7 weeks ago. Underneath it was a security alert notification in the company's standard template, automated, systematic, a little too easy to overlook if you weren't the one who programmed it. Unusual activity detected on account, N. Hayes, access attempt to restricted database, privilege escalation failed. He hadn't wanted to implement real security protocols at first. Said it felt like corporate paranoia, but the day I found him trying to access salary data he had no business seeing, I quietly added more logging. We're having data integrity issues, I told the CTO that afternoon. Or maybe someone's making unauthorized modifications. I don't know anymore, but I want to know. I need to. So I built a comprehensive audit trail no bigger than a few kilobytes per log. It blended in with the normal system telemetry. He smiled when I showed him the dashboard, just in case, he'd said. Now, in that apartment with the humming air conditioner, I plugged the drive into my laptop and opened the log folder. Each file was timestamped. I scrolled to the day before my promotion interview. The day Nathan said he came by just to do some routine maintenance. I clicked. There he was. Nathan, user account N. Hayes, moving quickly through authentication layers like he had a map in his head. He opened database connections, queried customer information, paused. Then he created a new user account with elevated privileges. He didn't hesitate, just compiled a script that would create periodic slowdowns, small enough to go unnoticed individually, but significant when tracked over time. A few seconds later, Marcus's account appeared in the logs. He stopped, observed Nathan's activities, provided an override when the system flagged the suspicious behavior. He said nothing, didn't intervene, just watched for a second, then logged out. I watched the logs twice, and then I sat there, laptop warm on my legs, the security notification still open beside me. They hadn't just accused me. They had known exactly who compromised the system. The next day, I didn't text ahead. The main door beeped when my keycard still worked. The smell of expensive coffee and corporate ambition hit me like a performance review I never asked for. Marcus was in his glass office again, a different mug in hand. This one said, "World's Best Boss," though he never lived up to the title. Nathan was standing by the whiteboard, sketching architecture diagrams in blue marker. He looked up. His eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak. I walked in quietly, holding my laptop under one arm, an HDMI cable trailing from my bag like a thin leash. Marcus lowered his cup. "You're back." "I won't stay long," I said. I set the laptop down on the conference table. Same one where we used to have Friday demos. Same one where Marcus once spilled coffee on the quarterly report but pretended it was already smudged when he received it. Nathan crossed his arms. "You came to confess?" I opened the laptop. The screen blinked to life. "No," I said. "I came to show you something." I clicked the file, maximized the log viewer, and stepped back. No introductions, no narration. Nathan's voice cracked first. "What is this?" Marcus leaned forward. The glow of the screen lit the shallow lines around his mouth. He squinted, then stiffened. There it was, in crisp, monospaced text. Nathan accessing restricted systems, creating performance issues, implementing. The very sabotage they'd accused me of. Then Marcus appearing, observing, authorizing, and logging out. The log replay ended. The screen froze on the timestamp. The room didn't. Nathan's arms dropped to his sides. His mouth opened, but no sound came. He looked at Marcus, then at me. I had to secure the system, Nathan said at last. His voice was unsteady, like he couldn't decide whether to defend himself or explain. Back in spring when we were pitching to investors, we needed to show we were indispensable. I needed to create problems only we could solve. Marcus didn't move. His face was unreadable. Nathan took a breath. I didn't damage anything permanently. I stared at him. You deliberately crashed production during my presentation to the board. Marcus spoke then, low and slow. You had no right to monitor our activities. I turned to him. I was the lead architect. You asked me to implement security protocols. His brow furrowed. The logging was part of the security audit requirements. It wasn't tracking you specifically. It was protecting the entire system from unauthorized access, including internal threats. That camera was for the company's protection. Nathan shook his head. You waited to show this. You let us walk right into it. No, I said. You ran into it. I just pressed play. He flinched like the words landed too close. Marcus set his mug down carefully. What do you want, Eliza? You got your little reveal. So what now? I looked at him, then at Nathan. Nothing, I said. I'm not here to get even. Nathan exhaled a bitter laugh. Then why come at all? Because you accused me. Because you made me stand in the office where I built an entire platform and called me a saboteur in front of the man who taught me to maintain radical transparency with the team. Because you wanted the truth until it wasn't convenient. I closed the laptop. The sound of the lid snapping shut was louder than I expected. Marcus leaned back. Well, I guess it's all out now. I slid the laptop back into its sleeve. No, not all of it. Nathan narrowed his eyes. What else is there? I met his stare. I'm not the one who should be asking that. Then I turned, walked toward the door, and left them in the silence. They'd engineered together. 2 days passed. I didn't hear from either of them. I stayed in my apartment, packed but unmoved. The resignation letter sat typed at the foot of my inbox. I hadn't sent it yet, not because I was waiting, but because I was finally in no hurry to go where no one valued me. On the third morning, I walked to the post office and mailed a small padded envelope. No return address, just 2 names typed in crisp font on the label, Nathan Hayes, Marcus Hayes. Inside, I placed 3 things. First, a copy of the security implementation plan, the one approved in straight corporate language requesting the audit trail. Second, a screenshot I'd printed at the copy shop near my apartment. An image pulled from the logs frozen on the moment Nathan created the account that would slowly degrade system performance. And third, a small handwritten line in my own hand, this was never about the code. I kept the original security directive to myself because it wasn't just a technical requirement. It was trust given officially, the kind that came with responsibility. In the last months of my time there, the company didn't document many security protocols. But one morning before my promotion interview, the CTO had forwarded that approved request and said, "Keep this just in case someone ever questions your authority to implement proper safeguards." I almost forgot we'd signed off on this. Later that evening, I checked my email. A single message waited from Nathan. No subject line, just a sentence, short and defensive, "You win. Enjoy what's left." There was no follow-up, no apology, no denial, and no response from Marcus. Not even a corporate goodbye with weight, just absence flat and familiar. I didn't reply. Some emails don't deserve an answer. 6 months later, I walked into a different tech campus just for an interview. The building stood on a small hill above the main highway where traffic sounded like servers humming under load. I hadn't been nervous about an interview since my first job. No one knew me there. I didn't tell my old colleagues I was moving on. The receptionist had already put my name on the visitor badge. Maya Reynolds, Senior Director of Engineering. The title I'd earned but never received. I sat in the waiting area and opened my portfolio where I kept my project notes. From my jacket pocket, I pulled out the thumb drive. I'd wrapped it in static-proof packaging the way developers protect components that matter. I set it gently in my bag. No grand gesture, no dramatic deletion, just the evidence itself, quiet, still containing everything they didn't want to face. "You were right to document everything," I said aloud to my former self. My voice didn't carry. It didn't need to. A few doors down, the conference room was already prepared. Reserved, technical interview, Maya Reynolds. The space was there. Etched in temporary marker, waiting for someone who'd never look back twice. I stood for a while, not in anger, but in certainty. There was nothing to regret, and no system left to crash. When I turned to greet my interviewer, the morning sun was just starting to stream through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the modern office. I didn't send any farewell email to OmniCorp. I didn't need to. Back in my apartment that evening, I opened my laptop one last time. Not out of resentment, not even out of vindication, just a kind of unfinished curiosity that needed answering. Like a thread left dangling too long. The news article was still there. I clicked through until I found the business section I hadn't read before, dated 2 months after I left. OmniCorp faces technical challenges after key personnel departures, the headline read. Morning light from the window illuminated the screen. The article mentioned significant system instability and loss of technical knowledge. They didn't know the monitoring system was still recording, silent but vigilant. But then I read further, not directly at the failure itself, but near enough. And there, like an epitaph to hubris, it said, former CTO claims critical systems were deliberately neglected after key architect Maya Reynolds departed. She was always the one who understood our infrastructure. I'm sorry leadership made her feel replaceable. I sat still for a long time. Then I closed the browser carefully this time. I didn't save the article to prove a point. I saved it to remind myself. Sometimes it's not the accusation that hurts most. It's realizing how quickly the people who hired you can distrust you. They don't ask what happened. They don't remember what you've built. They just look at you like a contractor who worked too efficiently. And even when the truth shows up undeniable, timestamped, silent as a log file, still they don't apologize. They just look away. Not because they didn't know, but because deep down they did. Maybe that's what professional growth looks like for some of us. Not vindication, not reunion. Just finally seeing it clearly and choosing not to stay in the meeting. When the gaslighting starts. I don't know if you've ever been called disloyal in a company you helped build. I don't know if you've ever held an offer letter that proved someone once valued you more than they could admit out loud. But if you have, if you've ever walked away quietly and knew that was the real victory, just leave a thumbs up. That's all. Just a single gesture. I'll know what it means. I sat in my apartment that night, the glow of my laptop casting shadows on the wall. The resignation letter remained unsent, a digital ghost hovering in my drafts folder. Outside, the city lights blinked like distant servers, processing information I'd never see. I should have felt anger, or at least vindication. Instead, there was only a hollow certainty, the kind that comes when your worst suspicions materialize into incontrovertible log files. The clock on my microwave read 2:14 a.m. Sleep wasn't coming. I opened my browser and navigated to OmniCorp's careers page out of habit. My former position was already listed, Senior Software Engineer, Infrastructure, with leadership potential highlighted in the description. The irony wasn't lost on me. 5 years of building their entire payment processing system, and potential, was still the most they could offer. I closed the tab and opened my email instead. 3 new messages had arrived since I'd left the office. The first was from HR, standard procedure about returning company property. The second was a calendar invitation to an urgent team meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. The third was from Sophia, the CTO who had approved my security implementation 6 months ago. Maya, can we talk? Not at the office. Coffee tomorrow? I stared at the message, cursor hovering over the reply button. Sophia had always been fair, even when Marcus undermined her decisions. She'd fought for my promotion twice, according to office whispers. Both times, Marcus had overruled her in favor of candidates with more executive presence, corporate speak for men who reminded him of himself. I typed a short reply, Bluestone Cafe, 8 a.m. I'll be there for 30 minutes. I closed my laptop and moved to the window. 5 years at OmniCorp had consumed my life, late nights, cancelled vacations, relationships that withered under the constant demand for just one more sprint. I believed in what we were building. More than that, I believed in my place within it. That belief had evaporated like morning dew under the harsh light of corporate politics. The question now wasn't whether to leave, that decision had been made for me, but how to leave without burning bridges I might need to cross again. Silicon Valley was vast but interconnected. Today's adversary could be tomorrow's reference check. My phone buzzed with Sophia's reply, I'll be there. Thank you. The next morning, I arrived at Bluestone Cafe 15 minutes early. The place was quiet, just a few remote workers hunched over laptops and a barista arranging pastries in the display case. I ordered a black coffee and chose a table in the corner with a clear view of the door. At exactly 8 a.m., Sophia walked in. She'd always been punctual to a fault, another quality that made her stand out among OmniCorp's leadership. She spotted me and nodded, then ordered at the counter before joining me. Thank you for meeting me, she said, setting down her cup. No small talk, no corporate pleasantries. It was one of the things I'd appreciated about working with her. I assume you've heard what happened, I said. She nodded, her expression neutral but her eyes sharp. Marcus gave me the official version. I'd like to hear yours. I took a sip of coffee, buying time to organize my thoughts. Nathan was sabotaging the system to create problems he could solve. Marcus knew and authorized it. They accused me of doing exactly what they were doing. I showed them the logs yesterday. Sophia didn't look surprised. And you're planning to resign? It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes. She nodded slowly. Before you do, there's something you should know. She reached into her bag and pulled out a tablet, unlocked it, and slid it across the table. This is the board presentation. From last week. I looked down at the screen. It was a slide deck titled Technical Leadership Restructuring. I scrolled through it quickly, then stopped at a particular slide, Proposed Executive Team. My name was listed as Director of Engineering, reporting directly to Sophia. Nathan's name was nowhere to be found. I don't understand, I said, looking up. Marcus already gave my promotion to Nathan. Sophia took back the tablet. Marcus doesn't have final say on technical leadership. The board does. He jumped the gun announcing Nathan's promotion because he thought he could force our hand. This presentation was approved the day before you confronted them. So what happens now? I asked. That depends on you, she said. The board knows. We have technical issues. They don't know the cause yet. If you walk away now, Nathan's narrative becomes the official one, system instability due to poor architecture. Your reputation takes the hit. The implication hung in the air between us. If I stayed, I could set the record straight. But staying meant working alongside people who had tried to sabotage both the system and my career. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Sophia's expression softened slightly. Because in the 5 years you've been here, you've never once placed your ego above the integrity of the system. That's rare, Maya. Rarer than you might think. I stared into my coffee cup, watching the dark surface ripple. I need time to think. Of course, she said, standing. The board meeting is tomorrow at 2 p.m. If you decide to attend, I'll make sure you have the floor. She paused. And Maya? Whatever you decide, make sure it's what's right for you, not just what's right for Omnicorp. After she left, I remained at the table, my coffee growing cold. The cafe had filled with morning commuters, their conversations creating a white noise that helped me think. The job market was strong. I'd already received 2 LinkedIn messages from recruiters this week. I could walk away, start fresh somewhere without the baggage of betrayal. But walking away meant letting them control the narrative. It meant my work, my reputation, could be dismantled by the same people who tried to undermine me. The thought sent a current of resolve through me. I paid for my coffee and headed home. The urgent team meeting would be starting soon, but I had no intention of attending. Instead, I opened my laptop and began to type. Not a resignation letter, but something more important, a comprehensive system analysis, documenting every instance of tampering, every performance issue, every unauthorized access. The logs provided timestamps and user IDs, I provided context and consequences. By noon, I had compiled a 20-page report with supporting evidence. I sent it to my personal email, then cleared my browser history, a professional habit rather than a precaution. As I was about to close my laptop, a new email notification appeared. It was from Nathan, sent to the entire engineering team. As many of you know, we've been experiencing system instability recently. After investigation, we've identified the root cause, unauthorized code changes made outside our review process. We're working to resolve these issues and will implement stricter access controls moving forward. In the meantime, please direct any system-related questions to me or Marcus. Nathan Hayes, Director of Engineering. My hands hovered over the keyboard, a reply forming in my mind. But sending it would only escalate the situation without changing anything. Instead, I took a screenshot and added it to my report. My phone buzzed with a text from Layla, a junior developer on my team. What's going on? Nathan just called an all-hands and said you compromised the system? I replied, not true. Evidence tomorrow at the board meeting. Trust the logs, not the politics. She sent back a thumbs-up emoji. Layla had been my mentee since she joined 2 years ago. She'd seen firsthand how the system had been built, the care taken with every module, every integration point. She wouldn't believe their narrative easily. The rest of the day passed in a strange limbo. I alternated between polishing my report, fielding concerned texts from colleagues, and occasionally checking the company Slack, where conversations abruptly stopped whenever I appeared online. By evening, I had received messages from 8 of My 12 team members, all variations on the same theme: confusion, concern, and a desire to hear my side. I responded to each one the same way: the truth is in the logs. See you tomorrow. At 8 p.m., my phone rang. It was Marcus. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message: Maya, this has gotten out of hand. Let's talk before things go too far. Call me back. I didn't. Some conversations couldn't be had in private anymore. Some truths needed witnesses. Instead, I emailed Sophia: I'll be at the board meeting tomorrow. Request full system access be restored to my credentials by 9 a.m. so I can prepare an accurate demonstration. Her reply came within minutes: done. Conference room A, 2 p.m. Come prepared for questions. I slept surprisingly well that night, better than I had in weeks. There's a certain peace that comes with standing on solid ground when others are scrambling for footholds. The next morning, I dressed with deliberate care: charcoal pantsuit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. Professional, not apologetic. I arrived at Omnicorp at 9:30 a.m., nodding to the security guard who seemed surprised to see me. The office was unusually quiet, with several empty desks. I made my way to my workstation, ignoring the stares and whispers. My credentials worked, as Sophia had promised. I logged in and began methodically gathering additional evidence, taking screenshots of database structures, API endpoints, and the commit history that showed exactly when and how the sabotage had been implemented. I organized everything into a presentation, simple and factual, letting the data speak for itself. At 11:45 a.m., Nathan appeared at my desk. He looked like he hadn't slept, his usually immaculate shirt wrinkled at the elbows. What are you doing here? He asked, voice low but tense. I didn't look up from my screen. Preparing for the board meeting. There's no need for you to attend, he said. Marcus and I have already briefed them on the situation. Now I did. Look at him, meeting his gaze directly. I'm sure you have. And now they'll hear from me. This isn't going to go the way you think, he warned. You're just going to embarrass yourself. I saved my presentation and locked my screen. Nathan, in the 3 years you've known me, have you ever seen me unprepared for a meeting? He didn't answer, just stared at me with a mixture of anger and something that might have been fear. I'll see you at 2, I said, turning back to my computer. He lingered for a moment longer, then walked away, pulling out his phone as he went. Probably calling Marcus. It didn't matter. The pieces were already in motion. At 1:30 p.m., I made my way to conference room A. It was the largest meeting room in the building, usually reserved for client presentations and quarterly all-hands. Today, it would serve a different purpose. I was the first to arrive. I connected my laptop to the projector, checked that everything displayed correctly, then took a seat midway down the table, not at the head, but not hidden in a corner either. Over the next 20 minutes, people began to file in, board members I recognized from company photos. Marcus took his usual seat at the head of the table. Nathan sat to his right. Sophia sat to his left, nodding slightly in my direction. The room filled until only one seat remained empty, directly across from me. At precisely 2 p.m., the final board member arrived: Eleanor Vance, the chairwoman, a former software engineer who had founded 2 successful startups before joining Omnicorp's board. She was known for her technical acumen and zero tolerance for corporate politics. She nodded to the room and took the empty seat. Let's begin, she said, her voice calm but authoritative. As I understand it, we're here to discuss ongoing system stability issues and their causes. Marcus, since you called this meeting, would you like to start? Marcus cleared his throat. Thank you, Eleanor. As I briefed the board yesterday, we've been experiencing increasingly serious technical issues with our payment processing system. After thorough investigation, we've determined that these issues stem from undocumented code changes made outside our standard review process. He gestured to Nathan, who picked up the thread smoothly. We've identified several instances where code was pushed to production without proper testing, creating vulnerabilities and performance bottlenecks. We're working to remediate these issues now, but it's a complex process because the changes were deliberately obscured. Eleanor's expression remained neutral. And who made these changes? Nathan glanced at me before answering. Maya Reynolds, our former lead engineer on the payment system. Former? Eleanor asked. Given the severity of the situation, we felt it was best to reassign her temporarily while we address the issues, Marcus explained. Eleanor turned to me. Ms. Reynolds, what's your response to these allegations? This was it. The moment truth would either prevail or be buried under corporate convenience. I took a deep breath and stood, moving to connect my laptop to the projector. With your permission, I said, I'd like to share some data that presents a different picture. Eleanor nodded. Please proceed. I pulled up the first slide, a timeline of system performance over the past 6 months, marked with key events: my promotion interview, Nathan's appointment, critical client meetings. 6 months ago, our system was performing at optimal levels. I began. Transactions processed in under 200 milliseconds, uptime at 99.98%, error rates below 0.1%. Then, we began seeing sporadic issues, small at first, but increasing in frequency and impact. I clicked to the next slide, the security logs I'd shown Marcus and Nathan, but now annotated with explanations for the non-technical board members. These are security logs from our monitoring system, implemented as part of our last compliance audit and approved by the CTO. I nodded toward Sophia. They show unauthorized access to restricted systems, creation of administrative accounts outside our governance process, and deliberate introduction of code that degrades performance under specific conditions. The room was silent as I walked through the evidence, slide by slide, log by log. I showed how the performance issues aligned perfectly with critical presentations and evaluations, my promotion interview, client demos I led, board updates on my projects. I showed Marcus's authorization of Nathan's activities. I showed the commit signatures, timestamps, and account credentials that proved beyond doubt who was responsible. The system wasn't failing because of poor architecture or undocumented changes, I concluded. It was being deliberately sabotaged to create problems that could then be solved by specific individuals at opportune moments. I looked directly at Nathan as I said the last part. He had gone pale, his eyes fixed on the table in front of him. Eleanor studied the final slide for a long moment, then turned to Marcus. "Do you dispute this evidence?" Marcus shifted in his seat. "The logs can be misinterpreted. Context is important. The logs are timestamped and user authenticated," I interrupted. "They show exactly who did what and when. There's no misinterpretation possible." Eleanor held up a hand. "Nathan, do you have anything to add?" Nathan glanced at Marcus, then back at the table. "We were testing system resilience," he said finally. "It's a standard practice to stress test critical infrastructure." "By creating failures during client presentations?" Eleanor asked, her voice sharp. "By undermining a colleague's promotion interview? That's not stress testing, Mr. Hayes. That's sabotage." The room fell silent again. I remained standing, my heart pounding but my expression composed. I had told the truth. The rest was up to them. Eleanor looked around the table. "I've seen enough. Sophia, as CTO, what's your recommendation?" Sophia didn't hesitate. "The evidence is clear. I recommend immediate revocation of Nathan Hayes's access to all systems, a full security audit conducted by an independent third party, and the reinstatement of Maya Reynolds to her rightful position as Director of Engineering, reporting directly to me." Eleanor nodded. "I concur. Marcus, given your authorization of these activities, the board will need to review your position separately. For now, Sophia will assume temporary leadership of all technical operations." She turned to me. "Ms. Reynolds, are you willing to continue with OmniCorp under these conditions?" The question caught me off guard. I had come prepared for a fight, not a victory. I looked around the table, at the faces watching me expectantly, then at Sophia, whose slight nod conveyed both respect and understanding. "I need to consider it," I said honestly. "My trust in the company has been severely damaged." Eleanor nodded. "Understandable. Please let us know your decision by the end of the week." She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "Sophia, please ensure all of Mr. Hayes' system access is revoked immediately. The rest of you, thank you for your time." As the room emptied, I remained at the projector, disconnecting my laptop with steady hands. Nathan brushed past me without a word, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Marcus lingered by the door, as if wanting to speak, then thought better of it and left. Only Sophia remained, waiting until we were alone before approaching. "That was the most professional takedown I've ever witnessed," she said with a hint of admiration. "Not a single accusation that wasn't backed by irrefutable evidence." I closed my laptop case. "I learned early on to document everything." "Smart woman," she said. "So, will you stay?" I considered the question seriously. "I don't know yet. The system needs stabilizing, and I built most of it. I owe that to our clients, at least." She nodded. "The director position is yours regardless. You've more than earned it." "Thank you," I said. "But right now, I need some air." I left the conference room feeling strangely light, as if a weight I'd carried for months had finally been set down. The office was buzzing with whispers as I walked through, but I didn't stop to engage. Some conversations would come later, after the dust had settled. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm on my face. I walked to a small park across from the office building and sat on a bench, watching people go about their day, oblivious to the corporate drama that had just unfolded. My phone buzzed with messages, colleagues asking what happened, Layla sending excited exclamation points, a formal email from HR about position reconsideration. I ignored them all for now. This moment of peace was mine. The truth had prevailed, not because I had shouted it from the rooftops or threatened legal action, but because I had done what I always did, built solid systems, documented meticulously, and trusted that facts would speak for themselves. In a world of corporate politics and nepotism, integrity was still my most powerful tool. The park bench offered perspective that my desk never could. People walked by, strangers focused on their own journeys, their own battles. A young woman in running gear jogged past, earbuds in, rhythm unwavering. An elderly man threw breadcrumbs to pigeons with ceremonial patience. Life continued its steady march beyond Omnicorp's glass walls and political trenches. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 12 new messages, 3 missed calls, and an email from Eleanor Vance herself requesting a private meeting tomorrow. The digital world demanded my attention while the physical one offered rare tranquility. I chose the latter, at least for this moment. The confrontation in the boardroom had gone exactly as I'd planned, yet I felt no triumph. Just clarity, the kind that comes not from winning but from finally seeing the complete picture. The system I'd built wasn't just code and databases, it was a mirror reflecting the values of those who controlled it. And today, that mirror had shown truths some weren't prepared to face. After 30 minutes, I finally checked one message, from Layla, office is chaos. Nathan cleaning out desk. Marcus locked in with legal. You're a legend. I smiled despite myself. Legends were myths built on half-truths and exaggerations. What happened today was simpler, accountability finding its target after months of misdirection. I replied, not a legend. Just prepared. Going home for today. Systems stable? Her response came instantly, all green. I'm monitoring. Take the win, Maya. The win. Was that what this was? It didn't feel like victory so much as validation, the difference between conquering and simply being seen. I walked home instead of taking the bus, using the 40 minutes to process the day's events. By the time I reached my apartment, I had decided to meet with Eleanor. Whatever came next, staying, leaving, rebuilding, I wanted to approach it with the same clarity that had guided me through the confrontation. My apartment felt different somehow, less like a refuge and more like a launching pad. I hung my jacket with deliberate care, kicked off my shoes, and opened the windows to let in the evening air. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I deleted all work-related apps from my phone and powered down my laptop. Tonight belonged to me, not to Omnicorp's aftermath. I ordered takeout from the Thai place around the corner, poured a glass of wine, and put on music that had nothing to do with focus or productivity. For one evening, I would not be the woman who had exposed corporate sabotage. I would just be Maya, rediscovering parts of herself that had been overshadowed by professional survival. The next morning arrived with unexpected calm. I woke before my alarm, made real coffee instead of the instant variety that usually fueled my rushed mornings, and dressed with intention, a deep blue dress that I'd bought for a friend's wedding but had never worn to the office. Professional. But distinctly mine, not chosen to blend into Omnicorp's muted aesthetic. Eleanor had suggested meeting at a small cafe 2 blocks from headquarters, neutral territory. I arrived 5 minutes early to find her already seated at a corner table, tablet and notebook arranged precisely before her. She stood as I approached, extending her hand. Ms. Reynolds. Thank you for meeting me. Maya, please, I said, shaking her hand before taking the seat across from her. Maya. She nodded. I prefer direct conversations, so I'll get right to it. Yesterday's revelations were disturbing on multiple levels. Not just the technical sabotage, but the cultural rot it represents. I appreciated her candor. I agree. The board has asked me to oversee a transition period while we reassess leadership structure. She slid a folder across the table. This is our formal offer for you to lead that transition as interim director of engineering, reporting directly to me until we appoint a permanent CEO. I opened the folder. The compensation package was substantially more than I'd expected, nearly double my current salary, with equity options and leadership development resources. This is generous, I said, closing the folder. It's commensurate with the value you've created and the damage you've prevented, Eleanor replied. But I suspect your decision won't be based primarily on compensation. She was right. Money had never been my primary motivator, despite what Marcus and Nathan might have believed. What's happening with them? I asked. Nathan has been terminated for cause. Marcus has been placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. The board will make a final determination next week. She paused. I won't pretend there aren't those who think we should handle this quietly to protect the company's reputation. I'm not among them. And if I decline? Eleanor didn't flinch. Then we'll respect your decision and wish you well. But Omnicorp will lose not just your technical expertise but the ethical compass we clearly need. I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or corporate doublespeak. I found none, just the steady gaze of someone who had navigated enough professional storms to value straightforward navigation. I need to see structural changes, not just personnel changes, I said. The problems go deeper than two people. I agree. That's why I'm here instead of sending HR. She opened her tablet and turned it toward me. This is the cultural transformation initiative I've proposed to the board. I'd like you to lead the technical aspects. I scanned the document, noting commitments to transparency, ethical technology practices, and merit-based advancement. It was ambitious, perhaps too ambitious for a company Omnicorp's size, but it addressed the root issues that had enabled Nathan's sabotage and Marcus's cover-up. This would be an uphill battle, I said. Most worthwhile things are, Eleanor replied. The question is whether you want to be part of rebuilding something better, or if you'd prefer a fresh start elsewhere. Both choices are valid. I closed the tablet and slid it back to her. I'll need the weekend to decide. Of course. She handed me a business card with her personal number written on the back. Call me directly when you've made your decision. And Maya? Whatever you choose, yesterday took courage. That won't be forgotten. We parted with another handshake, more collegial than the first. I walked back toward my apartment, taking a detour through the same park where I'd found clarity. Yesterday. The bench was occupied now, a young couple sharing earbuds, swaying slightly to music only they could hear. I smiled and kept walking. By noon, word had spread throughout the tech community. My LinkedIn profile had exploded with connection requests and messages, some from former colleagues expressing support, others from recruiters sensing opportunity in disruption. 3 competing firms had already extended interview invitations, including one from Sophia's former company. I ignored them all for now, choosing instead to meet Layla for lunch at a sandwich shop far enough from Omnicorp to avoid running into familiar faces. She was waiting when I arrived, practically vibrating with unasked questions. You're a rock star, she said the moment I sat down. The entire engineering team is calling you the log lady now. I laughed despite myself. That's terrible. It's better than some of the names they're calling Nathan, she replied, lowering her voice. Security escorted him out yesterday. He tried to access his workstation remotely last night, got flagged by the same monitoring system he tried to sabotage. Poetic, I murmured, though I took no pleasure in it. How's the team? Shocked, mostly. Some are worried about their projects. A few are updating their resumes. She hesitated. Are you coming back? The question hung between us, sincere and complicated. Layla had been the first person I'd mentored at Omnicorp, bright, determined, and now increasingly capable. She'd flourished under my guidance. What message would I send by walking away? I haven't decided, I said honestly. Eleanor offered me a director position to lead the technical transition. Layla's eyes widened. That's amazing. You have to take it. Do I? I asked, not rhetorically. The culture that allowed this to happen is still there, even with Marcus and Nathan gone. So change it, she said simply, as if it were the most obvious solution in the world. If you leave, someone else will fill that role, maybe someone who doesn't care about building ethical systems or mentoring junior developers or any of the things that make you different from Nathan. Her words lingered as we finished lunch, following me home like persistent echoes. Change it. As if transformation were just a matter of will rather than a complex realignment of entrenched behaviors and silent permissions. That evening, I opened my laptop for the first time since the confrontation and began a list, 2 columns, meticulously balanced. Reasons to stay. Reasons to leave. Under leave, damaged trust. History of disrespect. Better offers elsewhere. Fresh start. Under stay, unfinished work. Team relationships. Opportunity for systemic change. Proving point through actions, not just exposure. I stared at the list until the words blurred, then closed the laptop without reaching a conclusion. Some decisions couldn't be reduced to comparative data points. Some required a different kind of processing, the kind that happens in dreams and quiet moments rather than in active deliberation. Saturday morning, I woke to a text from an unknown number. It's Sophia. Coffee? Important update. We met at a rooftop cafe overlooking the city park. Sophia looked different outside the office, more relaxed in casual clothes, but with the same sharp intelligence in her eyes. The board voted last night, she said after we'd ordered. Marcus is out permanently. They've asked me to step in as CEO. I raised an eyebrow. Congratulations? It's a poison chalice in some ways, she admitted. But also an opportunity to fix what's broken. She stirred her coffee thoughtfully. Eleanor told me about your offer. She also said you haven't accepted yet. I'm still weighing options. Sophia nodded. That's fair. I have a counteroffer, if you're interested. I'm listening. Instead of interim director reporting to a temporary CEO, how about CTO reporting directly to me? Complete technical autonomy, board seat, equity refresh, and the authority to rebuild the engineering culture from the ground up. I nearly choked on my coffee. CTO? That's a significant jump. So was exposing executive sabotage in a board meeting, she countered. Maya, you've always been 10 steps ahead technically. Yesterday proved you can handle the political dimension too. What about you? You're the current CTO. And now I'll be CEO. I need someone I trust in that role. She leaned forward. Someone who values system integrity over self-advancement. Someone who documents everything. Her smile was knowing but kind. Why me? I asked. There are more experienced candidates. Experience isn't just measured in years, she replied. It's measured in judgment, in courage, in the ability to do the right thing even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I sat back, letting the magnitude of the offer sink in. CTO. Board seat. The authority to implement the changes I'd only imagined before. I don't need an answer today, Sophia said. But I do need one by Monday. The announcement goes out Tuesday morning either way. We finished our coffee talking about lighter things, a documentary series we'd both been watching, a new climbing gym that had opened downtown. It felt strange and necessary, this reminder that we were more than our professional identities. As we parted, Sophia touched my arm lightly. For what it's worth, I think you're ready. The question is whether Omnicorp deserves you after everything that's happened. Her words followed me through the weekend as I weighed my options. I went hiking on Saturday afternoon, pushing myself up steep trails until my legs burned and my mind cleared. On Sunday, I called my mother, carefully explaining the situation without violating confidentiality. What would make you proud of yourself? A year from now? She asked after listening patiently. It was her standard question whenever I faced a crossroads, not what would make me successful or happy, but what would make me proud. The distinction mattered. By Sunday evening, I knew my answer. I called Eleanor first, thanking her for the opportunity but declining the interim role. Then I called Sophia. I accept, I said when she answered. With 3 conditions. Name them, she replied without hesitation. First, I want Layla Chen promoted to senior engineer with a meaningful raise. She's ready, and she held things together while everything was falling apart. Done. Second, I want a public commitment to the ethical framework you proposed, not just internal policies, but external accountability. Regular audits, transparent reporting, the works. Already in progress. Eleanor's making it a board priority. Third, I want to rebuild the security protocols from the ground up. No exceptions, no executive overrides without documented justification and multiple approvals. You'll have full authority, Sophia assured me. Anything else? I thought for a moment. Yes. I want it understood that I'm not doing this out of loyalty to Omnicorp. I'm doing it for the engineers who built something valuable despite the leadership, not because of it. There was a pause, then a soft laugh. That's exactly why you're the right person for this, Maya. See you tomorrow, we have a company to rebuild. Monday morning felt different from the moment I stepped through Omnicorp's doors. The security guard greeted me with newfound respect. The receptionist handed me a new access card without my having to ask. Small changes that signaled larger shifts beneath the surface. Sophia had called an all-hands meeting for 10 a.m. The auditorium filled quickly, buzzing with speculation and nervous energy. I stood at the back, observing the crowd, the engineers clustered together for safety, the marketing team checking phones with practiced nonchalance, the sales leaders maintaining careful neutrality. At exactly 10, Sophia walked onto the stage, followed by Eleanor and 2 board members I recognized from the confrontation meeting. The room quieted immediately. Good morning, Sophia began. By now, most of you have heard rumors about leadership changes. Let me set the record straight. As of today, I am stepping into the role of CEO. Marcus Hayes is no longer with the company. A murmur rippled through the audience. Furthermore, she continued, we've accepted Nathan Hayes' resignation. A diplomatic framing that fooled no one. These changes come after a thorough review of management practices and technical decisions that undermined our core values and system integrity. She paused, letting the words settle. Moving forward, we're implementing a comprehensive transformation initiative focused on transparency, ethical technology practices, and merit-based advancement. To lead this effort and ensure our technical foundation remains strong, I'm pleased to announce our new Chief Technology Officer. My heart raced as she gestured toward the back of the room. Maya Reynolds has accepted the position, effective immediately. Many of you know Maya as the architect of our payment processing system. What you may not know is that her commitment to system integrity and ethical practices recently protected OmniCorp from significant technical and reputational damage. All heads turned toward me. I straightened my shoulders and walked forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes tracking my movement. As I reached the stage, Sophia extended her hand, then pulled me into a brief, unexpected hug. "The floor is yours," she whispered before stepping back. I looked out at the assembled employees, some familiar faces, others I'd never interacted with, all waiting to see what this unexpected new leader would say. "Thank you, Sophia," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "For those who don't know me, I've been with OmniCorp for 5 years, building systems designed to last, to scale, and to operate with integrity. Those aren't just technical values, they're human ones." I paused, making eye contact with Layla. In the third row. She gave me a subtle thumbs up. Recently, our company lost sight of those values. Systems were compromised, not by external threats, but by internal ones. Trust was broken. People were hurt. I didn't need to name names, everyone knew. As your new CTO, my first priority isn't a new feature or platform. It's rebuilding trust, in our systems, in our processes, and in each other. The room was silent now, attention complete. Some of you may be wondering if you should update your resumes. A few nervous laughs. I won't pretend that everything's fine or that change will be easy. But I will make you this promise: under my leadership, technical decisions will be made based on merit, not politics. Your work will be valued for its quality, not for who you know or how well you play the game. I looked directly at the engineers, many of whom had worked alongside me through late nights and impossible deadlines. The system we built together is strong because we built it with integrity. The company we rebuild together will be stronger. For the same reason. I stepped back, nodding to Sophia to continue with operational details. As she outlined next steps and transition plans, I watched the room's energy shift from apprehension to cautious optimism. Not universal acceptance, that would take time and proof, but the first fragile tendrils of renewed possibility. After the meeting, I spent hours in back-to-back conversations, reassuring key engineers, establishing new security protocols, and beginning the process of technical damage assessment. By late afternoon, I finally made it to my new office, formerly Marcus's corner space with its imposing desk and sterile decor. "We'll need to redecorate," Sophia said, appearing in the doorway. "This looks like a venture capitalist's idea of an executive office." I laughed, running my hand over the cold marble desktop. I was thinking the same thing. Less mahogany, more whiteboards. "It's yours to remake," she said. "Just like the rest of it." I nodded, looking out the floor to ceiling. Windows at the city beyond. It's strange. A week ago, I was fighting to prove I hadn't sabotaged the system. Now I'm responsible for its entire future. "Life comes at you fast," Sophia quipped. Then, more seriously, "You know this won't be easy, right? There will be resistance, not just to you but to everything you represent." "I'm counting on it," I replied. "Easy transformations rarely last." She smiled. "That's why you're sitting in that office instead of cleaning out your desk. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow, we start rebuilding." After she left, I stood alone. In the cavernous office, feeling its potential rather than its history. The space would change, just as the company would, not overnight, but through deliberate, principled action. One decision, one system, one relationship at a time. I pulled out my phone and texted Layla, "Meet me tomorrow, 8 a.m. Your promotion paperwork needs signatures, and I need your help redesigning the security protocols." Her reply came instantly, "Yes. To all of it. Bringing coffee and ideas." I smiled, slipping the phone back into my pocket. This was how change began, not with grand pronouncements, but with specific actions that aligned values with practice. Nathan had seen the system as a tool for advancement, Marcus had seen it as a means to control. I saw it differently, as a reflection of who we chose to be, individually and collectively. As I gathered my things to leave, a notification appeared. On my new company email, a meeting invitation from Eleanor for the first board meeting where I'd have a seat at the table. The subject line read simply, "Beginning again." It was an apt description, not just for OmniCorp, but for me. I had come to the confrontation meeting prepared to walk away. Instead, I was walking further in, but on my terms, with clear eyes and a mandate for transformation. Outside, the evening light cast long shadows across the office park. Employees streamed toward parking lots and bus stops, their days complete. Mine felt like it was just beginning, not just a new role, but a new chapter defined not by what I was running from, but by what I was building toward. I texted my mother on the way to my car, took the job. CTO, board seat, full authority to rebuild. Her reply made me smile, that's my girl. Make me proud. I already knew I would, not because the path ahead would be easy, but because it would be right. In a world where technical truth could be manipulated for political gain, standing firm on principle wasn't just an option. It was the only sustainable foundation for everything that followed. 6 months passed like a software release cycle, intense periods of focused work punctuated by moments of breakthrough and occasional setbacks. The marble desk was gone now, replaced with a simple wooden one that didn't put unnecessary distance between me and whoever sat across from it. The sterile white walls had given way to glass boards covered in system diagrams and team achievements. Transformation wasn't just a corporate buzzword here, it lived in the details. My morning routine had evolved with my responsibilities. I arrived at 7:30 a.m., 30 minutes before most of the engineering team, using the quiet time to center myself before the day's challenges. Today marked exactly 6 months since that pivotal board meeting where truth had prevailed over politics. 6 months of rebuilding, restructuring, and gradually restoring the trust that had been fractured. As I reviewed the quarterly metrics on my tablet, a soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Layla stood in the doorway, 2 coffee cups in hand and a tablet tucked under her arm. "Morning, boss," she said, setting 1 cup on my desk. "Thought you might need this. Board presentation today, right?" I nodded, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Thanks. How's the security audit coming?" Layla had flourished in her new role as senior engineer, taking ownership of the very security protocols that had exposed Nathan's sabotage. Under her leadership, we'd implemented a comprehensive monitoring system that made transparency the default rather than the exception. "Final reports ready," she said, handing me her tablet. "No critical vulnerabilities, 2 minor issues already patched. We're solid." I scrolled through the report, noting the meticulous documentation and clear recommendations. "This is excellent work. The board will be impressed." She beamed at the praise. "Well, I learned from the best. Document everything, trust the data, question authority when necessary. I only taught you the first 2, I said with a smile. The third was always there." After Layla left, I finished preparing for the board meeting, organizing my thoughts around our technical transformation journey. The numbers told a compelling story. System uptime improved to 99%, transaction speed increased by 40%, security vulnerabilities reduced by 78%. But the metrics I was most proud of wouldn't appear in any dashboard: the cultural shift within the engineering department. Gone were the days of solitary heroics and knowledge hoarding. We'd built a culture of collaboration, documentation, and shared ownership. Junior engineers now participated in architectural reviews without fear. Senior staff mentored freely, understanding that team success trumped individual recognition. The changes hadn't come easily. 3 engineers who thrived under the old politics had left for more traditional environments, but those who remained were building something extraordinary together. At 10 a.m. sharp, I walked into the boardroom. No longer the outsider fighting for recognition but a key voice in shaping the company's future. Eleanor nodded as I took my seat, a subtle acknowledgement of how far we'd come. Sophia, now 6 months into her CEO role, was reviewing financial projections with the kind of transparent confidence that had become her hallmark. "And now," she said, transitioning smoothly, "Maya will update us on the technical transformation initiative." I connected my tablet to the display and brought up the first slide, a before and after comparison of our system architecture. 6 months ago, we identified critical vulnerabilities in both our technical systems and our engineering culture. Today, I'm pleased to report significant progress on both fronts. For the next 20 minutes, I walked the board through our journey: the security overhaul, the documentation initiative, the new peer review process that balanced speed with quality. I highlighted key metrics but emphasized the human stories behind them: the junior developer whose suggestion had prevented a potential data breach, the cross-functional team that had rebuilt our payment gateway from the ground up, the new hiring process that evaluated character alongside technical skills. "Questions?" I asked as I concluded. "Impressive work," said James Harrington, the most skeptical board member who had initially opposed my appointment. "But I'm curious about sustainability. What happens if, when, you eventually move on? Will these changes survive without your direct oversight?" It was a fair question, one I'd been asking myself since day one. "That's why we focused on systemic change rather than personality-driven leadership," I explained. Every process we've implemented is documented, transparent, and designed to outlast any individual, including me. We're building a culture, not a cult. Eleanor nodded approvingly. And the team that was affected by the previous leadership's actions? How have they adapted? Healing takes time, I said honestly. Some wounds were deep. But we've created space for both accountability and growth. No one's defined by past mistakes, their own or others, but by their commitment to our shared values moving forward. After a few more questions, Sophia transitioned to the next agenda item. As the meeting continued, I felt a quiet pride in what we'd accomplished. 6 months ago, I'd been fighting to clear my name. Today, I was helping to shape an organization where such fights wouldn't be necessary because truth and integrity were built into the system itself. The remainder of the day passed in a blur of meetings and decisions, reviewing a new hire's credentials, approving a security update, mediating a technical disagreement between two senior architects. By 6 p.m., the office had quieted as most employees headed home to lives beyond work, another cultural shift we'd actively encouraged. I was preparing to leave when Sophia appeared in my doorway, a bottle of champagne in one hand and 2 glasses in the other. Got a minute? She asked, though. It wasn't really a question. I gestured to the small seating area where my imposing predecessor's leather sofa had been replaced with comfortable chairs designed for conversation rather than intimidation. 6 months, Sophia said, pouring champagne into both glasses. Worth celebrating, don't you think? I accepted the glass with a nod. It's been quite a journey. That's an understatement. She raised her glass. To rebuilding what was broken, and making it stronger than before. We clinked glasses and sipped in companionable silence for a moment. The board was impressed today, she said. James actually told me he was wrong about you, which might be a first in corporate history. I laughed. Noted for posterity. Sophia's expression turned more serious. I've been meaning to ask, have you heard anything from Nathan or Marcus? The question caught me off guard. In the whirlwind of rebuilding, I'd given little thought to the architects of the original sabotage. Nothing directly. I heard Marcus landed at a venture capital firm. Nathan's LinkedIn says he's a technology consultant, whatever that means. She nodded. Marcus reached out last week. Wanted to clear the air over lunch. And? I declined. Some bridges don't need rebuilding. She set her glass down. But that's not why I wanted to talk. The real reason is this. She handed me a glossy brochure with Women in Tech Leadership Summit emblazoned across the top. They want you as a keynote speaker. Theme is Integrity in Technology Leadership. I stared at the brochure, scanning the impressive list of previous speakers. Me? I'm not. I don't have the profile for this. That's exactly why they want you, Sophia countered. You're not a celebrity CEO or a serial entrepreneur with a TED Talk. You're an engineer who stood up for what was right, then stayed to build something better. That's a story worth sharing. The thought of speaking publicly about what had happened made my stomach tighten. Until now, we'd handled the transition with minimal drama, no press releases about Nathan's misconduct, no public exposés of the sabotage. We'd simply acknowledged leadership changes and moved forward with rebuilding. I'm not sure I want to revisit that chapter so publicly, I admitted. Sophia leaned forward. Maya, what happened here wasn't just about you, or Nathan, or even Omnicorp. It was about patterns that play out in tech companies everywhere, competent women passed over, technical truth subordinated to political convenience, ethical corners cut for short-term gain. She tapped the brochure. Your story could help others navigate similar situations, or better yet, prevent them. Think about what you needed 6 months ago, validation that you weren't crazy, confirmation that standing for integrity wasn't career suicide. You could give that to someone else. Her words resonated in ways I hadn't expected. Throughout my career, I'd focused on building systems, not narratives. Code didn't need inspiration or validation, it simply needed to be correct. But people weren't code. They needed stories that helped them make sense of their experiences, especially the painful ones. I'll think about it, I promised. That's all I ask. Sophia stood to leave. Oh, and the quarterly results are being announced tomorrow. Prepare for some well-deserved recognition. After she left, I remained in my office, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold and purple. The champagne glass sat half empty on the table, a tangible reminder of how far we'd come. 6 months ago, I'd been contemplating resignation. Now I was being asked to share my story as an example to others. The summit was 3 months away, plenty of time to decide. I packed up my things and headed home, the brochure tucked into my bag like a question waiting for an answer. The next morning brought the quarterly announcement Sophia had mentioned. Omnicorp had exceeded revenue projections by 12%, with the payment processing system, my system, handling record transaction volumes without a single outage. The stock jumped 8% by noon, and congratulatory emails flooded my inbox from board members and investors. But the message that meant the most came from an unexpected source. At 2 p.m., as I was reviewing architecture proposals for our next platform upgrade, my assistant forwarded an email that had come through the company's general contact form, MS. Reynolds, you don't know me, but I'm a senior engineer at FinTech Solutions. Our director has been altering performance metrics to make himself look better while undermining the work of those he sees as threats, particularly women and people of color. I've documented everything but was afraid to come forward until I heard about what happened at Omnicorp from a friend who works there. The culture you've built since then has become something of a legend in our industry. I've decided to present my evidence to our board next week. Whatever happens, thank you for showing that standing for truth isn't career suicide. Some systems need to crash before they can be rebuilt properly. Respectfully, a fellow system architect, I read the message twice, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. Pride that our story had reached beyond our walls. Concern for this unknown engineer facing their own moment of truth. And a dawning recognition that perhaps Sophia was right, my experience wasn't just mine anymore. It had become a template. Others could follow in their own journeys toward integrity. I forwarded the message to Sophia with a simple note, I'll do the keynote. Her reply came within minutes, I knew you would. Already accepted on your behalf. Speech prep starts next week. I laughed at her confidence, then turned my attention back to the architecture proposals. The work of rebuilding never really ended. There was always another system to improve, another process to refine, another relationship to strengthen. That evening, instead of working late, I accepted an invitation from Layla and several other team members to celebrate the quarterly results. We gathered at a local brewery, claiming a long table in the back where conversation could flow freely without corporate constraints. To the system that couldn't be crashed, Layla toasted, raising her glass. And to the team that rebuilt it better, I added, including everyone present in the gesture. As conversations broke into smaller groups, Raj, one of our newer engineers, who had joined post-transformation, slid into the seat beside me. Can I ask you something? He said, his expression earnest. Something personal? I nodded, curious. When you confronted your boss and his nephew with the evidence, weren't you terrified? I mean, they could have denied everything, destroyed your reputation, blacklisted you in the industry. It was a question I'd asked myself many times over. The past 6 months. Terrified isn't the right word, I said after a moment's reflection. I was certain. Not about the outcome, that part was terrifying, but about what I had to do. The logs showed the truth. Hiding it wasn't an option I could live with. Raj nodded slowly. That's what I thought. It's like there's a point where doing the right thing isn't a choice anymore. It's just the only path forward that lets you recognize yourself afterward. His insight struck me as profound, especially coming from someone who hadn't witnessed the confrontation firsthand. That's exactly it, I agreed. Why do you ask? He glanced around to ensure our conversation remained private. Before joining Omnicorp, I was at a startup where the founder was faking demo data to secure another funding round. I reported it anonymously to the investors. The company folded, and 40 people lost their jobs. I've wondered ever since if I did the right thing. And now? Now I work for someone who risked everything for system integrity. He smiled. It helps with the doubt. Our conversation was interrupted by a round of impromptu speeches and increasingly creative toasts, but Raj's words stayed with me throughout the evening. For all the metrics and dashboards we'd created to measure our transformation, perhaps the most meaningful impact was the invisible one, creating space for others to act with the same integrity we demanded of our systems. 3 months later, I stood backstage at the Women in Tech Leadership Summit, reviewing my notes one last time before the keynote. The journey from that confrontation in the boardroom to this moment had been neither direct nor easy, but it had been necessary, not just for me or for Omnicorp, but for the principles we'd fought to uphold. Sophia appeared at my elbow, immaculate as always in a tailored suit that conveyed authority without apology. Nervous? She asked. Oddly, no, I replied, realizing it was true. 6 months ago, I couldn't have done this. But now, it feels right. That's because it is. She straightened my jacket slightly, a gesture both maternal and collegial. Remember, your story isn't just about exposing sabotage. It's about what you built afterward. The stage manager signaled that we had 2 minutes. Sophia squeezed my arm encouragingly. Break a leg. I'll be in the front row. As she walked away, my phone buzzed with a notification. A news alert from a tech industry publication. FinTech Solutions announces leadership overhaul following Internal investigation. I clicked the link, scanning quickly. Evidence presented by a senior engineer led to the termination of 3 executives and a comprehensive review of the company's engineering practices. The board has appointed Anita Chen, formerly of Tech Dynamics, as interim director of engineering, to lead the transformation initiative. I smiled, tucking the phone away as the stage manager counted down. Some battles were won in boardrooms with irrefutable evidence. Others were won more quietly, when someone found the courage to stand for integrity because they'd seen it was possible. Please welcome our keynote speaker, the announcer's voice echoed through the auditorium, Maya Reynolds, Chief Technology Officer of OmniCorp. I walked onto the stage to applause that felt less like personal recognition and more like collective affirmation of the values I'd come to represent. The lights were bright, but I could make out Sophia in the front row, exactly as promised, and beside her, unexpectedly, Layla, Raj, and several other members of my engineering team. They must have come directly from the office, a gesture of solidarity I hadn't anticipated. At the podium, I set down my notes but didn't immediately refer to them. Instead, I looked out at the sea of faces, women at various stages of their technical careers, many likely navigating challenges similar to those I'd faced. The last time I stood in my boss's office, I began, echoing the opening of the journey that had brought me here, I was being accused of sabotaging the very system I had built. Today, I lead the technical division of that company, reporting directly to the board that once questioned my integrity. A ripple of interest moved through the audience. This isn't a story about revenge, I continued. It's not even primarily about justice, though justice played its part. It's about something more fundamental, the alignment between technical truth and human values, between what we build and who we are. For the next 30 minutes, I shared our story, not just the dramatic confrontation, but the methodical rebuilding that followed. I spoke about documentation as an act of self-protection and transparency as a form of systemic immunity. I described how we'd transformed technical practices and cultural norms in tandem, understanding that one couldn't thrive without the other. The systems we build reflect the values we hold, I said as I neared my conclusion. When we tolerate deception in our code, we invite it into our culture. When we prioritize appearance over function, we create spaces where truth becomes dispensable. But the reverse is also true. When we build with integrity, we create environments where integrity can flourish. I looked directly at Sophia, acknowledging her role in making transformation possible. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do isn't exposing what's broken, though that's often necessary. It's staying to build what comes next. It's using our technical expertise not just to identify problems but to architect solutions. As I finished speaking, the applause was immediate and sustained. But what moved me most weren't the clapping hands but the nodding heads, recognition from those who had faced similar challenges, who understood the courage required not just to stand up but to stay and rebuild. The Q&A session that followed was thoughtful and engaged. Women shared their own experiences of technical gaslighting and organizational sabotage. They asked about documentation strategies, about building allies, about knowing when to fight and when to walk away. I answered as honestly as I could, acknowledging that there was no universal playbook, only principles that had to be adapted to each unique situation. Afterward, at the reception, a steady stream of attendees approached to share their stories or ask follow-up questions. One conversation particularly stayed with me, a young systems architect from a major financial institution who pulled me aside as the event was winding down. I've been maintaining shadow documentation for 2 years, she confided, her voice low but determined. My manager takes credit for my work, then blames me when anything goes wrong. After hearing your talk, I'm going to present everything to our CTO next week. Are you prepared for the potential fallout? I asked, concerned. She nodded. I have 3 job offers already lined up, just in case. But your story made me realize, even if I leave, I shouldn't leave this broken system for the next person to deal with. Some things need to be exposed, not just escaped. I gave her my email address. Let me know how it goes. And remember, the goal isn't punishment. It's correction. By the time I returned to my hotel room that evening, my inbox contained 23 new messages from summit attendees, each sharing their own version of our story: systems undermined, credit stolen, gaslighting disguised as mentorship. But alongside these familiar patterns were seeds of resistance and reformation, documentation initiatives, transparency requirements, integrity-focused leadership. I forwarded a few of the most striking messages to Sophia, adding, "You were right. The story needed to be told." Her reply came as I was preparing for bed: "Stories change systems too. Get some rest. We still have work to do tomorrow." I smiled at her characteristic blend of acknowledgement and forward momentum. She was right, of course. Transformation wasn't a destination but a continuous journey, in systems, in organizations, and in ourselves. As I drifted toward sleep, I thought about that confrontation 6 months ago, how I'd walked into the boardroom prepared to lose everything, only to find I was actually at the beginning of building something better. The system I'd defended hadn't just been code and databases, it had been a manifestation of values I wasn't willing to compromise. By protecting it, I discovered a path not just to professional survival but to genuine leadership, the kind measured not in titles or authority but in the integrity of what we build together. In the quiet darkness of the hotel room, I made a silent promise to the system architect I'd spoken with earlier, to the anonymous engineer at FinTech Solutions. To everyone trying to align technical truth with human values, you are not alone in this work. The systems worth building are the ones that reflect the best of who we are. And sometimes, the code that matters most is the one we live by. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.